Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining me once again on this journey through my 2025 book reviews. We're just going to hop right back in and carry on with the reviewing of the next batch of books that I read in 2025. First up that I read this episode was Timescape by Gregory Benford. It was this interesting sort of time travel book, not in the same sense as normal time travel books where nobody is physically traveling through time, but it is a time travel book in that information and messages are being traveled through time. It follows these two timelines, two stories on these two different timelines of 1998 and 1962, following these group of scientists. And in 1998, the world is succumbing to environmental disasters and political unrest, and there's this algae bloom virus that is destroying the oceans and killing the oceans and spreading like crazy and wiping out animals and mass extinctions and stuff. And so a group of scientists in 1998 decide to try to use tachyons, which are faster than light particles that they can shoot back into space, into the astronomical location of where the Earth was in 1962 to try to send a message to avert the disaster that the world currently finds itself in. Everything else has failed, so they're trying to change the past to change the future. But they're doing it in a very careful way where they're not giving full information, they're giving hints and just enough information to sort of get a head start on solving the problem in the past so that it doesn't create any paradoxes in the future because they don't know what's going to happen in regards to that. The storyline set in 1962 is following once again a group of scientists who are doing this experiment, and they receive this message and they figure out it makes this Morse code message, and it's just this mystery of them trying to figure out what it is. And at first they think it's being beamed from another star because of where it's coming from space, and just sort of following the one main scientist on doing these experiments and his sort of progression through deciphering this message and figuring out what it's talking about, and getting people to believe him. So it was this interesting sort of time travel story. To be honest, I liked the storyline following the scientists in the past, the 1962 and onward storyline, because it was sort of more of fleshed out, like you're with these scientists trying to work with them to discover what this message means and just the troubles he's going through. And whereas the 1998 timeline, it was for the most part very much just sort of like a vessel to convey the science of these tachyons and the science of what they're doing. And so it was interesting in regards to that it was very well thought out and very sort of hard science fiction about how, if this was possible, they would go about doing it with these tachyons. But it wasn't until sort of the end of the book where I became more interested in the 1998 timeline. Eventually, like they figure it out, and an event happens. It's just like the beating of a butterfly's wings causes a hurricane on the other side of the world. That's sort of this tiny little change that, because of them solving this message in the past, creates a paradox between the future and the past and creates an alternate timeline. And so you see sort of the two sides of the story of what happens to the 1998 world. You also see I think it ends in the 70s or something, the past timeline, where the changes that happen to the world because of this tiny little change in detail or an event that happened differently, and just sort of these paradox worlds. And I thought it was a very cleverly written way to tell this story, and very believable in regards to these tachyon particles and sort of what they might accomplish with it. It was a unique read, different from type of time travel stories that I'm used to and have done before. So I thought it was pretty good. Next up that I read this episode for books in 2025 was Synners by Pat Cadigan. I was kind of hesitant to go into this book since I'd read Neuromancer earlier in the year, and just my relationship with reading that book, and I didn't really enjoy it that much. And I will revisit it, Neuromancer, in the future, just because I feel like I got to give it that much. I feel like I wasn't personally in the right headspace when I was reading it, so I will revisit it at a time. But coming into Synners, it being another cyberpunk story, I just didn't know if I was ready for that. It's this other sort of near future story about how technology has been able to integrate more with sort of human consciousness, and it's mainly used for entertainment issue purposes. Like most of the main characters in it are uh, entertainment creators, where they are creating games and music videos and shows and programs and stuff for these people that are able to integrate into this sort of virtual reality to experience it all. You have to wear like a full body suit to get the sort of feedback to feel like you're in there, and it's just like a headset and everything. These two individuals, they figure out a way to connect directly into the brain with these plugs that have to be surgically implanted and give you full immersion without a bodysuit, full integration into your dreams, and whatever your brain can think up, it will create. And so it's this story about the merging of sort of human subconsciousness and human thought with technology, and just the follies of what that would happen to the world, where all the walls between individuals has been dropped, and the addiction that people get to this experience, and just what happens with um, having a brain so intimately connected to a computer. To be honest, it took me about 100 pages to be comfortable enough with the characters to just figure out who I was with, who was talking, whose thoughts I was with, because it is written with a lot of flow of consciousness and subconscious thought and stuff. And it doesn't give a lot of hints in the writing at first of like who these characters are. And you have to really like pick out the clues of the surrounding and the people they're interacting with and stuff to figure out, okay, I'm following this person now and I'm following this person now. And it felt like she was purposely writing it in this confusing way where you don't know who you're sort of experiencing the book with at the time, to sort of reflect on the natural anonymous nature of the internet, and how it's easy to hide behind an alias and not put your real self out there. So it was about a quarter of the book before I really felt comfortable with it. um, but then I really got into it once I recognized the characters and recognized the plot and the story, and things started moving along, and it just became this cool sort of story about uh, creation and the limitless abilities of the human mind when given full access to being as creative as you want. And um, but then it really sold me. I don't want to give anything away because I thought it was such a cool concept, but this something happens to one of the main creators, one of the main visualizers that creates most of the high end music videos and stuff. And something happens to him while he's plugged into this computer, and it creates this sort of killer virus that gets loosed on the network, on the world, and people with these plugins and that experience this thing all start dying and like going crazy, and the total collapse of the system. Cities are isolated, and like the traffic systems don't work and all the car systems don't work and everything like that. So it turns into this weird, crazy, like not zombie, but like this weird horror almost story with this virus entity on the network, and just how he was created and what it represents, I thought was really, really cool. And um, I was satisfied with how it ended, and I enjoyed sort of the coming together of all the people. And So even if you're starting to give it a read and you're feeling confused and you're feeling lost, you really got to just stick it out, because it clicked for me. So I just feel that you got to give it its chance, and it was a pretty unique story to to read and experience, and it did change my opinion on sort of the cyberpunk genre. And so it made me want to, reading Synners is what made me decide I got to go back and read Neuromancer and give it another chance and sort of open up to the genre a bit more. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I'm trying to keep these episodes a bit shorter, so I've just got one more book for you guys tonight. Continuing on with what I read in 2025, and it's Black Easter by James Blish. Now, this book was part of, or is part of, his After Such Knowledge series, which includes A Case of Conscience, which I reviewed on my first episode, Black Easter, and the sequel to Black Easter, The Day After Judgment. So this was the second James Blish that I've read after A Case of Conscience, and I read A Case of Conscience, before, and reviewed it before. At the time, I didn't realize it was part of this series, and I actually found the third book, Day After Judgment, first, and I thought it was a cool cover for that one. Yeah, I found Day After Judgment by him. Just thought it looked cool, and the blurb on the back I thought was cool. So I grabbed it. I haven't read that one yet. And then when I realized, oh, this is the sequel to this series, I started actively looking for Black Easter. And luckily I found it's not the version I would like to have. I'd like to have one sort of that matches Day After Judgment. So I'm keeping my eye open for that. But I was happy to find this one because apparently it's pretty rare to find. So Black Easter is written as if sorcery is real in the world, and sort of the ritualistic summoning of demons was possible. And if the rituals and everything is written in real life grimoires that are in the world actually worked, what would happen? And so it follows this black magician who is sort of the best black magician in the world. And he's approached by this arms dealer who has a job for him, but he wants him to do a couple test runs sort of before this big job where he wants to have this black magician, summon a demon to kill this governor in California and kill his rival physicist or something. And just sort of the following the process that this black magician would do, and the rules that are established in these grimoires, and the rules established with these contracts he's created with these demons and minor devils and stuff like that. And he's able to pull off these two test sort of killings easily. So the arms dealer, his main goal to hiring this black magician is he wants him to release all the demons and devils that he has contracts with onto the world for a night, because he just wants to see what would happen. So it was a really cool read. It was a really short read, really fast read, but it was a cool read in sort of this idea of these demons being summoned and the rules for doing it, and the rules that each of these demons have, and how he goes about doing it. And so that was it was cool to read and interesting to read in regards to that. There was this sort of long bit at the end where he's just going through every demon that he summons, and the name, and the where his rank in the armies of hell is, and the description of them. And it's a lot of like Latin heavy names and words that I struggled with because I don't know Latin, but they're all released into the world for a night, and the unthinkable happens and they can't be sent back to hell. And it just ends on sort of this big sour cliff note of, well, crap, like what have we done? And so it makes you really want to immediately get into The Day After Judgment. I really do want to finish it off, but I just sort of got distracted with some other stuff. So I will hop onto it as well. But I like James Blish. As I said before, A Case of Conscience was another sort of religious science fiction tale, but that one was sort of more science fiction, more space and aliens and things like that, where this one is very much grounded on Earth and is more fantasy, I guess, than science fiction in how you look at it. But I just thought it was a cool read, and I'm definitely keeping my eye out for that other version because I think it would be awesome to have on my shelf. So that'll be it for this episode. Thanks once again for stopping by. Feel free to like and subscribe and share around with people you think might be interested in some reviews of classic science fiction, new science fiction, anything like that. So thanks again. I'll see you next time. Bye.